Hey there, welcome to 21 Secrets to Retail Success. I'm your host and facilitator, Nicole Sims. Welcome to day 18. Today we're talking to Kathy Cruz, who is the founder with her sister of the Salvage Boutique, a greatly successful home decor store that started her own blog. She took her knowledge and success of this store and then created a podcast called The Savvy Shopkeeper, which is also a company that helps other brick and mortar stores be successful. We had great conversations, all things brick and mortar, how to open one successfully, how to avoid the pitfalls. The number one thing you really need to know when you're running a brick and mortar business. You don't want to miss this. Stay tuned.
Whoops, my bad. Hey, Kathy.
Hi.
Good morning. How are you? That was funny. Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. How are you? I'm so glad you invited me to do this.
I'm so glad you're here today. It was going to be such a great conversation. I know we worked together before. We did the series with you before. I just loved your community. I just love being a part of it. So I know you have a great way to talk about brick and mortar retail. I just love what you're going to bring to the table today. So I'm excited. Very excited.
Me too. I'm ready.
Here we go. So first question, dive right in. First question. So what do you think is one of your number one secrets into opening a brick and mortar store successfully?
I think this one would probably surprise people. And it actually surprised me. I think this applies to any entrepreneur. Is the first thing we all need to work on is mindset. I don't care what kind of business you own. And this personally was a big slap in the face to me as I was I was trying to grow because I was trying to grow two businesses. I have a store of my own that I share with my sister. I have this online business where I serve other retail business owners, in particular brick and mortar store owners. And I realized right after the pandemic hit, and you and I worked on that Reopen with Confidence series, I realized that I had work that I needed to do on myself to build my confidence, to understand what I was doing, to envision what my goal is, and to put myself in the shoes of the future me so that I could grow confidently. And it's something that I actually talk about a lot more on my podcast episodes now, because there's a lot of retail information, and a lot of it is like metrics and this and that and store layout. And oftentimes what I find, especially in one-on-one coaching, or even in like mentoring my group members, is we almost just have to step back and work on our mindset and work on some program thinking and limiting beliefs and thought errors and all that stuff so that we can grow. It's almost like we have to just step back just a little bit so that we can take big steps forward. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. And I'm glad you said that, because that's something that I had to learn as well. Because especially a lot of people out there who are watching had a full-time job, a 9 to 5 or something, and they're doing this on the side and they're launching it and they want to grow it, or they just launched it and want to grow it. The mindset is completely different. And the mindset for working for someone and being successful, to having your own business being successful, you have to come over a lot of hurdles and things. I had to come over it. I was like, okay, I was a rock star in my corporate job. Now I'm like, why is it not happening as fast?
Yes. You'll say things like, I feel stuck, or I'm not gaining traction, or it's not moving as fast enough, or whatever it may be. And then your wheels really start to spin. And, people often ask me, like, what does that mean to work on your mindset? It's to like really dig deep and think about, what are the things that, even as a child or a teenager, that you were programmed to think that might be causing you to have those wheels stuck now? And really having those conversations, whether it's with a coach or whether it's with yourself, or you read, some self-improvement books. It doesn't matter to me what people do. It's just that I really want them to sit there and not think like surface level, but to dig deep and figure out what it might be that's happening within them that might be keeping them from moving forward.
That's really good. That's really good. A lot of small business owners need to hear that. Like, no matter what you're into, coaches go through it. We go through it. Business owners go through it. Brick and mortars. It's the best. It's about learning about yourself and what really drives you, and then what you really have on the inside that's really why did I start this business, and what is it worth to me, and then changing your mindset. I know one of the experts talked about how, you're at one level, but then in order to get to the next level, your mind has to change. You can't be a person who made $5,000 a month to $10,000 and be the same person. So
Right.
every single step of your business, you have to learn your mindset. It's really key. I love that you said that. That's really good.
Yeah. And I think it surprises people because it sounds either superficial or
Yes.
woo. And
Woo.
people, I think when people listen to my podcast, I think one of the reasons they like it is because I give concrete steps. Like you can take action almost on every podcast episode, but I often mingle in the mindset stuff in between because it's so important and it's not superficial. It can make or break entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good stuff. That's really key. So really, you guys, that's a really good point. Just make sure you get your mind right, that you dig deep, and then you just, one thing, also give yourself grace. It's a learning period. So that's really good, Kathy. I like that. So people probably think, oh, what's your number one reason? Oh, you have to have your numbers right. You have to have this right. No, you have to have your mind right.
Yes.
I
talk about all of those other things, but I always say mindset first, math second, because so much of what I teach is driven by data and analytics and financials and metrics. So I love all of that. But I've realized, again, for entrepreneurs, we have to nurture our minds first and our mindset and our thinking and our belief in ourselves. And all of that other stuff you can learn it, it'll come, you'll take it one step at a time.
Good stuff. Okay. So moving forward from that. So what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes? So we know the mindset is something that, you want to make sure that's your secret, but what's a common mistake you see a lot of brick and mortar stores are doing when they're running their business?
I'd have to say probably two things. And one is probably time related or time management related. The fear of letting go of control or the fear of delegating, for sure. My brand is Savvy Shopkeeper, which really indicates one person. And that's because that's how we start. We start as one business owner. That's how our brand and our businesses and a lot of brick and mortars start that way. But if we want to grow, we have to delegate, we have to hire, we have to let go of the control. And that is really hard because store owners, they feel so connected to their brands and their customers and there's the stores themselves. Like we create this like safe, beautiful space and we just want to protect it and hold on to it.
Right.
But really, in order for us to grow, we have to let some of that stuff go. So I would say that one is delegating and hiring. And the other one is financial. It's the fear of a profit and loss statement, a fear of formulas. Now, I will say that I have some incredible people in my communities who will message me and they'll say, Kathy, I hear you on the podcast, but I love the analytics and I love the formulas. And I'm like, yes. But for the most part, I would say most shopkeepers, that's how I refer to the brick and mortar store owners, most shopkeepers have a fear of it or they want to avoid it. And I try to teach in a way that says like, no, it's okay. And it's easier to understand that you think and that information that you get from it is really empowering.
Right. Why do you think that is? Why do you think the numbers? Because they want to make money. So the number of the money part of it they want. Why do you think the fear of understanding profit and loss, even though what a gross margin is, knowing what that is, or having a budget or a plan, why do you think that kind of resistance to that happens?
If I'm completely honest, most of the people in my group memberships, I do have a couple of males, but most of them are women, and women are, I feel historically, especially at my age, if I go back into school, we aren't empowered. We're not given that kind of information or that kind of education to empower us to be financially savvy. It's historically, especially the older you are, but my generation and older generations, it's often taught or was taught the man does that in your roles. And I flip that on its head. No. We can do that for ourselves.
Right.
And I am more than willing to take my time to teach lessons in a way that it makes it easier. And I often get the shopkeepers who go through the lessons, they'll go, they have like aha moments. And the other thing that I say too around that subject is it may not click the first time. Be patient with yourself. I feel like a broken record sometimes on podcasts when I teach, and I realize it's actually good for me to be a broken record because it may not click in someone's head until they hear it the 5th, 6th, or 7th time.
That's good.
So now I just embrace being a broken record. I'm just going to say it over and over again. I don't care, because if I get that one person who's like, oh my gosh, mind blown. I just got it.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
That's good. I didn't think about that's a good point, because a lot of people who own brick and mortar stores, a lot of them are women, regardless of what kind of what they're selling, whether it's candles or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of like a generational thing sometimes, where we're like, okay, when you're setting up, we're supposed to be the creatives and have, this wonderful creative life. But then when it comes to numbers and analytics, that's a male driven field. And so sometimes I'm like, this is too scary. This is too much for me, but it's not. And if you want to have a successful business, you have to know your numbers, because your numbers can make or break you. So embrace it. What are some ways of, personally, like you said, listen to your podcast, but what are some of the ways that they can learn, where they can learn how to use the numbers and not be so afraid of it, and be open to it and understand, okay, just the basic numbers they need to know?
Yeah. I mean, listening to podcast episodes, if there's a book out there that you find helpful, I somehow, I think because my brain needs to understand it too, and I am a store owner, I approach it in different ways, and I use visuals, because most of us are creatives.
Yes.
So the visuals are really important. So even though sometimes you can listen to a podcast, you read a book, but if the visuals aren't in there, and my visuals don't always, they're not always really pretty. I remember taking a class one time. It was a financial related class, and I literally just took markers out of my drawer and a piece of paper, and it was a big aha moment for me too. And I drew out a pie chart, but I called it the retail profit pie. It's what I teach now, and I made it into a spreadsheet. And I just took ugly markers and circled, and it was I still have it. And I scanned it, and it's in one of my blog or one of my podcast show notes.
Nice.
Just making something simple like that so that it clicks in your head, and taking your time with it. Maybe try to learn one metric at a time, where you learn it, you understand it, and then you move to the next. If you try to understand, if you have an aversion for math or financials, and if you read a blog post by Shopify or any other big platform, and it lists 12 metrics, you're going to overwhelm your brain.
Yeah.
Maybe print it out. This is how my mind works. Print it out, cut it up into separate metrics.
Oh, good idea.
And almost like flashcards, and learn one, maybe next week, learn the next, the following week, learn, the third one, and take it from there. Because the people who don't like the math and the formulas, that's what happens. Their brains get really overwhelmed. And I like to break it down into mini lessons.
I like that. That's really good. Because I can see people saying, okay, Kathy, I agree with you. I want to learn, but where can I start? Because again, a lot of them might not have the resources, or might not be connected to a podcast, not connected to a community like yours or mine, but they want to learn. That's why they're here. So that's really good. Because Shopify does give you a lot of information. That's a good point. A lot of Shopify stores, they give you a lot of information. Print that out, cut it up, and just learn it on your timetable, and just make sure that you're on your way of learning it, and you'll remember it better as well. And you digest it, and you actually speak about it, even if it's part of your business. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, and it sounds so elementary, you're going back to school and you're back in fourth grade, but I'm telling you, it's really helpful when you break it down into chunks instead of trying to put it all in at one time.
Well, you are going back to school because you're learning something different. You are learning something new. You're learning something how to, if you never heard of a spreadsheet for a P&L, trying to understand a profit loss statement on one sitting is not going to happen.
Yes. I mean, I've had group members say to me, I actually have one as a testimonial. She said, I always felt like I had to have a business degree. She's like, but this was my degree. Going through your program and being in your membership is my degree. I don't have to go back to school. Yeah, I loved it too. It was one of the best things I ever read.
That's good. That's really good. I like that. So, okay. So let's say they've done this now. They have helped their mindset. They figured it out. They understand the basics of running the business as far as the numbers and everything. Now they want to grow. Now they want to scale. What do you think are some of the misconceptions that a lot of brick and mortar stores have in order to scale or to grow their business?
Yeah. I mean, other than the things that I mentioned, because those are really important, the one thing that I often find, if I go back to the retail profit pie, is retailers don't realize that immediately half of their pie goes to the cost of products. And it's so different than a service-based business. A service-based business has a much bigger area for profit margin because they don't have the overhead that we do. They don't have the rent, they don't have the utilities, they don't, depending on the business, there are some service-based businesses with brick and mortars, but retail immediately half of your pie, and my sister jokes I love to eat, so I always like use examples of food.
I love it.
Half of your pie goes to the cost of your products. And then if you're paying rent, that could be another 10% going towards rent. And then if you're paying utilities and other operating expenses, that's another 20% or whatever it may be, because now you're buying shopping bags and tissues and you're paying for garbage service or parking or all the things that come with having a brick and mortar space. So now immediately that's 80%. 80% of your retail profit pie is gone. You only have 20% to work with, but you still have other things that you have to pay. Where you have payroll, you have other things. And I always want to make sure that the retail store owners pay themselves first, because what happens is it's easy for them, 5, 6. I've even had group members tell me that they were store owners for 10 years before they joined my membership. Wow. And they started to pay themselves, because that's one thing I teach. It's really easy, in particular for women, to be very giving and overly giving, and we don't pay ourselves first. So we need to pay ourselves first, and we need to take care of ourselves first so that we can take care of everyone else. And no one really talks about that either. So a couple of things is there are a lot of expenses when you run a brick and mortar store, but it doesn't mean you can't be profitable. And it's really important to take care of yourself and pay yourself first, because I know it's so cliche, but what's the expression about the cup that fill, put your mask on first.
Yeah, before you help somebody else. Yeah.
You fill your cup up for like all the things. It's so true. It's so true. The last thing I want is to see a store owner who's been open 5 to 10 years. They're burnt out. They're exhausted. They resent their business. No, we work really hard and we deserve to pay ourselves first. And that's not a selfish thing. It's actually really smart.
That's really good. I like that. So a couple of things I want to kind of piggyback on. So I love how you said that that majority, like a large portion of what you make is going back into your business to keep functioning. And a lot of people don't realize that part of it, because they're looking for, I want to make a lot of sales and I want to make a lot of money. Well, that's great. But then to keep going, you have to put that money back into your business, and the cost of goods is the number one thing. That's what people are buying. So that's the base of your business. That's really, really good. And I also like the pay yourself part, because again, even though you're doing all that stuff, you still have to, you're here for a business. You're here for a lifestyle. You're here for something passion you want to do, but you also want to fund your passion. So what percentage do you think about starting off would be a good start paying myself? If I'm starting out.
Yeah. I mean, there are formulas and different ways to do it, but I always tell, when my sister and I started, and we started from our homes with a blog. It was a DIY blog, and we sold on, eventually we sold on Etsy, but we sold through social media and people just started following us. And even if it meant we paid ourselves almost like a bonus, it was like $100, $200 a month. Then we grew from there into percentages, because we're co-owners. I always tell people, even if you do 1% of your revenue, start with 1% of your revenue. And when that feels comfortable, hopefully it does feel comfortable. Actually, what happens is it feels really good.
Yeah.
And then it goes from there. Bump it up to 2%, go to 3%, go to 5%, go to 10%, and then grow, if you can, more from there. It just depends on how, where your business is. How much do you focus on profit margin? The more profitable you make those products you sell, the more you can pay yourself, the more you can hire, the more you can delegate, and the more you can grow.
I like that. I just want to get people, because I see people like, hey, I love the idea of paying myself, but I don't know where to start. Because people, I want to give myself $5,000 a month. Well, that might not be feasible. So I wanted to get some real numbers, some real ways of actually looking at like 1% is a good idea. I like the fact of your bonus. Like maybe you can't do a percentage, but I can pay us $100 a month. That makes you feel good. You're doing something for yourself as well as growing your business. So that's one of the people kind of perspective of how that is, because that's what I'm doing. I do 1% and then 2%. And I'm growing it like that too, because I'm doing a lot of things too. So you want to make sure you're feeling good, like something in the bank. Oh, I feel good. I've done this. And I see that I'm actually yielding a profit. It gives you motivation.
And if we circle back to the mindset, it's your thinking is the base or basis for everything that you do.
Right.
So if you're nurturing your thinking and you're nurturing rewarding yourself for the hard work that you do, that is going to continue to grow and flow into your business.
Exactly.
And you want to nurture positive thinking.
Right.
The other thing that I want to add to that, for me, it's not just about paying yourself. What is also really important is building a reserve account or an emergency fund or a profit account. I don't care what people call it, but I also want them in tandem to do that. Like, again, if you start small, it's 1% towards paying yourself and 1%. And people will think like, oh, 1% sounds so little. But you'll be surprised at how much that could snowball. 1% could turn into like a nice $10,000 emergency fund within a year or two, depending on the size of your business. But you'll be surprised, no matter what, that 1% can grow more than you realize. And again, the goal is to then increase the percentage along the way.
Right. I like that. I like the fact of also momentum. So the more you see grow, the more, positive look at your business, like I'm actually doing something. Because if you don't do anything for yourself, but you don't see anything at the end of the day, you get discouraged. Like I'm doing all this work early. I'm doing all this work. Nothing's happening. If I'm looking at my bank account, oh, last month it was this. Now this month is this. Oh, I'm doing something. I'm progressing. Oh, this feels good. Oh, I'm going to go forward. So that's really good stuff. I like that, because people need to tell. The more positive you are in the business, the more you see progression, the better off you're going to be. And it's a mindset. If I know that I'm growing and know I'm getting better, I'm going to keep going. Okay, I'm going to keep going. You don't see that, kind of get this
reinforcement.
Exactly, positive reinforcement. Good stuff. So I know you have some free gifts for our audience today before we get out of here. So what are the free things you have for our audience today?
I do. So it depends on where you are. If you are a boutique owner or even an aspiring boutique owner and you want to open a brick and mortar space, but you think, whoa, like, I don't even know where to begin. I have a really pretty comprehensive, I should say. I feel it's pretty comprehensive checklist. It's 5 pages and it breaks everything down into categories so that you can kind of wrap your brain around what it is that you would need to do to open a brick and mortar store. Now, by no means am I saying that you would do everything on this list. I mean, it's pretty detailed, everything on this list in a week. But it's nice because I'm a checklist kind of person.
Me too.
I think everyone's realizing how my brain works, like small mini projects, check things off. You can check things off as you go along. You can do some things to prepare to open your brick and mortar, and then you can do some other things on the checklist as you're opening. So it's savvyshopkeeper.com/open checklist. That's for this one. And then if you are a brick and mortar store owner now, or you just recently opened, I just launched a quiz. And the purpose of the quiz is to share the 5 stages of a shopkeeper. And I've taken all the years of blogging and podcasting and group member conversations and one-on-one coaching conversations. And I've identified 5 stages, all from the aspiring shopkeeper to the retail CEO. And if you take the quiz, it's 8 questions. It's super easy. And when you get your result, the best part about it is it'll give you the 6 podcast episodes you should listen to that pertain to that stage. Nice. And then a couple of freebies. So if you're at this level, you'll get the free checklist. But depending on the level that you are, you might get other checklists or other helpful resources. And I think it's really important for us to realize that running a retail business, whether it's e-commerce or brick and mortar, oftentimes it's a marathon. And that if we can identify what to work on in each stage, we can get to the next stage and focus on those other things. Otherwise, again, there's a pattern here. I like to lessen the overwhelm.
I like that. Those are great. Those are fantastic. So you guys, you're going to get the links to both of those freebies in the email that you're seeing with the video. So you'll have both links to those for you guys. So make sure after this video, you guys go to that link to that right away and get the information. It's really good stuff. Thank you, Kathy, so much.
Yeah. And I think I forgot to mention the link for the quiz. I'm sorry. It's savvyshopkeeper.com/quiz, but I know you'll share it too.
Yeah, I'll share that with them. So no problem. I'm glad you said it again. No, so people have to hear it as well. So before we get out of here, I have one more question for you. One final question. So everybody is watching. What is the one thing, no matter what they hear today, the one thing you want them to walk away from this conversation today? The one thing that they don't get anything else, they get this one thing from you today.
It is profitable to run or possible to run a profitable brick and mortar business. And it's possible for you to do that and for you to learn all of the tools and all of the tricks to do that yourself. Like I'm guessing that a lot of the people that will subscribe to this will be women, and I just want them to feel empowered to know that it's possible. And they don't have, I mean, it's good to lean on other people for sure. It's good to hire and delegate,
Right.
But I want them to feel empowered enough to know that they can do that themselves too. That's the biggest thing.
I like that because I think you're right. The audience might be majority women. There's some men, definitely some men, but we do need to feel empowered that we can do this because again, that's not something we were taught to do. That's something we were told to do. We're told to get a job or do whatever. But we are empowered. We can be good business owners. We can have a successful life, successful business, and be profitable, and be empowered to have our own type of legacy. So I love that.
Yeah, and you don't have to be exhausted to do it. My tagline is how to work less, profit more, and grow. You don't have to burn out doing it either.
I like that. Work less and profit more. I like that.
Me too. I like it too.
That's a great tagline. Because again,
people say to me all the time, like, how do you do it? How do you run a store and run you otherwise? Like, that's what I teach. Like, that's what I want other people to do too. I don't want, retailers to be working 80 hours a week. It's not necessary.
It's not. And I've done that in my corporate job. So I definitely don't want to do that in my own business. No. But yeah, you don't want to do that. But yeah, people do have a misconception that to run a brick and mortar, that you have to be there 6 o'clock in the morning to 12 o'clock at night. And it's like, yeah, you could, but you should, if you don't have to, be have good systems in place. So that's good.
Yes. Oh man, don't even get me started.
I know, sorry, I know. That's another conversation. That's another conversation. But yeah, that's really good though. So that's really good. So you guys can have a profitable business and have a life and have a legacy and not be burned out. I love that. Yeah. That's perfect. Thank you, Kathy. This was a great conversation. I know it's gonna be gems. I know it's gonna be amazing. And I like the way you started with the mindset. That was really good. So I really appreciate you being here today. And I know a lot of people who watch this are gonna get a lot of value out of it. And get those freebies, you guys. It's gonna help you plan your brick and mortar or start with brick and mortar and get you on the right set. So thank you, Kathy. Have a wonderful
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Bye.